Purifying Thought and Speech, Rule 7, Guidelines for Traveling the Spiritual Path, according to the teachings of Alice Bailey. Commentary by Dr. Lisa Love. Group 7, Probationary Disciple. This is the 7th of 14 rules found in the Alice Bailey book, Initiation Human and Solar, that those who are connected to Bailey's Group 7 Probationary Discipleship are meant to follow. These rules are only recommendations, but if followed, they will help you along the spiritual path to have fewer difficulties as you progress. Remember, it is important as much as possible to not skip steps and to do the inner work to make sure you are walking the talk. Rule 7. Let the disciple turn his attention to the enunciating of those sounds which echo in the halls where walks the Master. Let him not sound the lesser notes which awaken vibration within the halls of Maya. Initiation Human and Solar, and this rule in the commentary to follow comes from pages 198 to 200, and please note that this was written in the early 1900s when the male pronoun was all that everybody in books everywhere used back then, so try not to be reactive to that. Also, in these rules, the word master refers to your soul. So you're trying to echo the sounds in the halls where walks your soul, or soulful sounds. And Maya has to do with selfish, separative tendencies that take hold that create duality and division. Keeping that in mind, let's read the commentary from the book. The disciple who seeks to enter within the portals of initiation cannot do so until he has learnt the power of speech and the power of silence. This has a deeper and a wider significance than perhaps is apparent, for it holds, if rightly interpreted, the key to manifestation, the clue to the great cycles, and the revelation of the purpose underlying pralaya. Until a man comprehends the significance of the spoken word, and until he utilizes the silence of the high places for the bringing about of desired effects on one plane or another, he cannot be admitted into those realms wherein every sound and every word spoken produces powerful results in matter of some kind, being energized by two predominant factors: A, powerful will, scientifically applied; B, right motive, purified in the fires. An adept is the creator in mental matter, an originator of impulses on the mental plane, thereby producing results in astral or physical manifestation. These results are powerful and effective, and hence the necessity for their originator to be pure in thought, accurate in word, and skillful in action. When these ideas are realized by applicants, the immediate consequence will be important changes in the life of every day. These changes might, for the sake of their practical use, be enumerated as follows. And before we go into that, let's look at a few key points. So basically, this rule is all about learning the power of speech and the power of silence, when to talk and when to keep quiet. And we have to learn how to do that around different kinds of people, different kinds of groups. We have to learn how to match the right kind of vibration with that speech, or to be in silence, which has to do with this idea of pralaya, when things kind of go into a quiet space. There's more to pralaya than that, but that's essentially what we can say for right now in regards to this rule. Why do we want to do this? Because the more mastery we have over our minds in meditation, the more discernment we have as we move through the mental plane and even get into the buddhic or intuitional plane, the more powerful our thoughts are, the more powerful our speeches. And some of this is in regards to when we become leaders or spiritual teachers or become more effective in the world. Some of it is in regards to that. But it's also on a subtle level in regards to us understanding that the more will we have scientifically applied, the more power we have in creating thought, sending it out into the subtle realms, and becoming powerful with what we think and say. And we have to become responsible and accountable for that. And that's why this rule is here. So we are learning. Now, we're not adepts yet at this rule, but to become an adept, we understand that we originate things on the mental plane, and they will produce results in astral or emotional. That's what that word essentially means here on the astral plane, but also the emotional plane, and physical manifestation. So we discover in this rule that it is important for us to become pure in our thoughts. And we have to do that in a way that doesn't get neurotic. But it is important to clean up what we think, to be accurate in our words. Words matter. We have to learn to match what we say, to reflect what we perceive in the inner realms, and to transmit that in a way that the people that are going to be attracted to whatever we say and do, that those people can use what we're saying in a way that helps them sound those notes where walks the master or their souls, and doesn't create in the halls of Maya more selfish, separative, divisive tendencies in their lives. So now we will go on and enumerate those practical changes, continuing with the commentary from the text. A. Motives will be closely searched, and a strict check will be kept upon originating impulses. Hence, during the first year in which the applicant devotes himself to the work of preparation for initiation, he will, 3 times a day, keep a written account of the investigations he pursues, which concern his motives or the mainspring of action. B. Speech will be watched, and an endeavor will be made to eliminate all unkind, unnecessary, and wasteful words. The effects of the spoken word will be studied and be traced back to those originating impulses which in every case initiate action upon the physical plane. C. Silence will be cultivated, and applicants will be careful to preserve strict silence concerning themselves, their occult work or knowledge, the affairs of those associated with them, and the work of their occult group. Only in group circles or in connection with their superiors will a wise latitude in speech be permitted. There is a time to speak. That time comes when the group can be served by wise words, a careful intimation of conditions, good or bad, and a rare but necessary word to some brother concerning the inner life, or to some superior or group of officials in case where a brother may be hindering a group through error of some kind, or might help the group if put to different work. D. The effect of the sacred word will be studied, and conditions for its use wisely arranged. The sounding of the word and its effect upon a particular esoteric center, not in any case whatsoever a physical center, will be watched, and the life thereby influenced and regulated. The whole question of the study of sound and of words, sacred or otherwise, has to be taken up by applicants for initiation. This is something which must be faced more strenuously by all eventuating occult groups. So now let's kind of look a little bit at some of what is going on here. First of all, when you hear the word occult, that has to do with something which is occluded or hidden, or those working on hidden knowledge or trying to unveil certain truths and understand things more in depth. So A, we have to look at our motives. Why are we learning about all of this? Why are we interested in this kind of teaching, be it Alice Bailey or integral philosophy or Buddhist or Hindu or Masonic or Christian, whatever it is? Why are we learning about these esoteric teachings and truths? What's our motive? And it's interesting because here we have a rather daunting thing, if we really did it, to 3 times a day take time to write down what's our motive for this. At group 6, aspirant, we pretty much don't even think about our motives. They're pretty much centered on learning about this stuff so we can become well known as a spiritual teacher, make money, have power, have access to more pleasure, the goodies out there in the world. That's pretty much the motives of a group 6 aspirant. They don't really even think about it. But when we get into group 7 and become a probationer on the path, we'd better think about it. Because if we don't, and we try and push ahead into group 8, we're going to start to have a lot of problems and a lot of karmic consequences. So that's a rather daunting thing to think that for a year, any one of us would devote ourselves to checking our motives 3 times a day, writing them down and asking ourselves, am I being motivated by love, service, compassion? By how I can really help others on the spiritual path? Or is this really about me and gathering a following around myself and all the things that people are going to say about me because I know so much, or the money they're going to throw at me because they think I'm special, etc., etc. We really have to examine why we're learning this, and that's why this rule is there. And we watch our speech to eliminate all unkind, unnecessary, and wasteful words. Interesting. How do we be kind and be clear and be real and be truthful? We're not trying to be mushy here, but we need to assess, is the person ready to hear what I'm trying to say? Can I say it in a way that really deeply listens to the other person, deeply is able to assess where the other person is at? That's a real psycho-spiritual skill. Do I avoid saying things that don't really need to be said? Do I not waste words? Do the words that I say have true meaning behind them? Do they really deliver something that helps to clarify things for other people? These aren't easy things to learn how to do. Silence will be cultivated. Now, this is a tricky paragraph because I come from a psycho-spiritual training and background outside of just these teachings, and I have degrees in transpersonal psychology, and I also had a communications minor a long time ago in my bachelor's degree program. And so it's really important to understand, when do we need to be quiet? I didn't used to be very good at that when I was younger, but I've learned with groups more, is it really necessary for me to speak at this moment? Am I really adding something? Even if I am adding something, am I taking attention away from everybody else who, if I was more quiet, their voices could enter in and they might have something valuable to say, or just the fact that there was space for their contribution? These are things that we have to really look at. But this paragraph also talks about something broader here. It talks about group work. And this is a tricky thing here. we're told that we have to have strict silence concerning ourselves. What does that mean? We never talk about what we're doing or the group that we're involved in, etc. It doesn't mean that. It means that we know when to be silent. We know how to assess who we're with, if they be receptive to what we're saying or not, if they distort what we're saying, if we tell them something. We learn to be cautious with that and to keep silent when we need to. Then it has to do something with our group that we're with. Now that could become dysfunctional, couldn't it? It could become cultish-like and controlling-like, where we can't speak about certain things that we've learned or certain secrets that the group has taught us or certain concepts that they've taught us. And that in and of itself can become a problem. So when it says only in group circles or in connection with our superiors will speech be permitted, that doesn't mean that we'll do that in such a way where we'll be overly submissive and controlled by dominating leaders. It means that we learn how to discern the kind of group that we're in, discern when it's appropriate to bring something to our superiors. Wise latitude means we feel more free to say we have these kinds of concerns, we have these kinds of questions, and a healthy group with healthy leaders will allow for that and will listen to that. There is a time to speak, as it says here. But when we speak, we try to use wise words. We stop and we think. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And we are careful to look at, is this a good time to speak? Is this a bad time to speak? Is this a good environment to say it in? Is this a bad environment to say it in? Those are things that we take time to assess. And regarding if we feel upset with somebody else, we know how to say with kind but clear, concise words that we're concerned about somebody and how they may be impacting the overall group work. Now, this isn't just in some like occult, esoteric group. This is in a business. This could be in a family. These rules apply everywhere. And so we learn how to speak about others in a way that is appropriate and kind and caring. And that's why it also includes that person might be helped by being given different kinds of work. And then regarding, we just kind of talked about all of that. Regarding the sacred word will be studied. The sacred word in this text is the Om. Now the Om comes from the Om, A-U-M, which comes from the Amen in Christian tradition, which comes from the Aman back in Egypt. You see how that word is connected. But this is a really interesting thing. Is the Om just simply a word that we say just to say it? Or is there something more to it and its use? That's something else that we are trying to understand at this level. This is an awful lot, it seems, for just a probationary initiate. Somebody on probation or somebody who may or may not make it. They're being tested to see, can they do this enough that they can be trusted? And the chances are that mistakes will be made. But this is just for Group 7 probationers, which also includes the stages in the Bailey books of Little Chelaship and Chela in the Light. But it's important because especially in Group 7, especially with Chelas in the Light, we become rather full of our own knowledge at that level. We've read all these books, we have all these degrees, or if we don't have degrees, we have a following even of people, and they all think that we're wonderful. And it's very easy for us to become rather full of ourselves rather quickly and to manipulate everything so it benefits primarily us and doesn't really benefit our students. And that's where we can easily fall off the path. And that's why I'm on probation. And that's why ideally, maybe we even take a year and 3 times a day, my goodness, write down our motives for why we're learning about all of this. Because it's not about what we know. That can help. It's about who we become and what we realize about who we really are. So going further into my own commentary, I've already done some of that. One of the main steps, a Group 7 probationary disciple, which includes little chelaship and chela in the light, one of the main steps that individual needs to recognize, again, is the power of thought and speech. What we think, say, and do matters. Now, that may seem really odd. What we think matters, and we have to be careful that we don't become overly paranoid about it. But without going into some of my own experiences here, what we think even matters. It matters. That's why we do the meditative work, so that we can think thoughts that are more lofty, more spiritual, more purified, more receptive, more clear, more in alignment with higher planes of consciousness. We're trying to train not just our words and our speech, but our thoughts, our everyday contents of consciousness, what we think about each and every moment of the day, how aware we are of who we are, why we're here, and how we're serving. Those who are on the path recognize this and watch carefully whatever they put into their thought life and out into the world, ensuring that what they think and speak brings about greater clarity, unity, understanding, compassion, empathy, illumination, and integration. These are some of the things that echo in the halls where walks the Master, or our souls. And these are some of my keywords that I put in there, but observe at the end of your day, when you do a review at the end of your day, like when you're doing a meditation at night or when you're getting ready to go to bed, kind of look at your overall thought life. What were you engaged in? Now, the world can be very difficult. We've got to function in the world. A lot of negativity can come at us. And we have to be very careful because we don't want that negativity to drag us down, so we start to gripe and complain and separate and divide and awaken vibration within the halls of Maya. This is no easy thing to do here, to not let that drag us down. So this is quite a training. How do we be in the world and be mindful of what's going on out there, and yet stay within our meditative center and focus and awareness of who we really are as the soul, so that we can bring about greater clarity, unity, understanding, compassion, empathy, illumination, and integration. Integration is the ability to take many different perspectives and points of view. It has to do with that word integral. How do we do that? This requires a lot of thought, and it also requires the ability to be much more conscious and careful with our words. If we do not take steps to follow this rule, remember they're recommended, but they're recommended, I hope you're seeing, for a reason. If we don't take steps to follow this rule, we will move along the spiritual path and we will increase our power and influence over others, while at the same time allowing our thoughts and speech to awaken the vibration within the halls of Maya. These halls are full of division, confusion, hate, disrespect, and disregard for others. They polarize. we get into one point of view or the other, we start to react emotionally, and we don't take the time to settle those emotions down in meditation and to really think about how to really speak about these things in a way that won't stir up the lesser vibration within the halls of Maya. Maya is awakened whenever we forcefully assert lopsided and distorted views. Rays 1, 3, 5, and 7 in the Bailey system tend to do this. I'm going to overpower you. I'm going to speak over you. I'm going to over-intellectualize you. I'm going to lay down the law on you. I'm going to give you all my scientific reasons why I'm right, you're wrong. And maybe there is more truth, a greater perspective, a greater sense of rightness. But we don't come at it with this emotional quality that awakens vibration within the halls of Maya, that creates confusion, division, hate, disrespect, disregard. You may understand that somebody's point of view is in error or represents something that isn't that expansive or inclusive, but we're training ourselves how to talk to people in a way that remembers they are souls. We're training ourselves to think of other people, regardless of their developmental stage, regardless of their outer appearance, as if they are souls. And I'll just do a little segue here. One of the ways that I've been doing this is, we get so many of us, these spam calls. I get so many on my phone. And sometimes I don't let them go to voicemail. I forget I picked them up. And I've been training myself not to be rude with the person on the other end of the phone. It's like, oh my gosh, that person is a soul doing a job, probably because they have to. It's probably not the most fun job to do, that people be irritated that you've called them, to hang up on you, etc. So I've actually been training myself, even there, to say hello and thank you for calling, and I appreciate that you're doing this job, but I'm sorry, I'm just not interested, etc., etc. People that knock on your door, or people that send you an email, whatever it is, or a text message. How do we do this rule in a way where we are mindful? Now, coming back to what I have in the commentary, sometimes Maya is awakened when we forcefully assert lopsided and distorted views, or Maya wakes up when we fail to exercise our minds enough to think things through clearly and speak in healing and holistic ways when called to. Now, in the Bailey system, rays 2, 4, and 6, which are the softer rays, may fail to speak up because they're afraid. They may fail to speak clearly because they don't think with enough precision, the way rays 1, 3, 5, and 7 tend to do, especially rays 3 and 5. And so that too can awaken vibration within the halls of Maya. And we have to be careful about that. Sometimes we may speak kindly, but not clearly, or not forcefully enough that the message really gets through. I always say that it's important to be able to crack the egg so the chick hatches and comes out. We don't want to smash the egg, rays 1, 3, 5, and 7, so that the chick dies and we don't evolve the consciousness. But we also don't want to hit the egg so lightly because we're trying to be gentle and kind and nice and look spiritual, so that nothing changes. The chick or the concept or the new illumination isn't able to break through the egg and be revealed. We see then the importance of following these rules as much as possible on the probationary path, which is also called the path of purification in the Bailey books. Group 7, again, little Chelas and Chela in the light, are moving out of the emotional plane of kama desire that is dominated by the realm of the five senses, and are beginning to take more seriously the reality of levels of consciousness behind what the five senses reveal. And that means Group 7 probationers' minds are increasingly stimulated. They're on the cutting edge of humanity's overall evolution. And so probationers in Group 7 are much more likely to be involved in leadership positions and to be writing and speaking on spiritual matters. And if they have not, or we have not, trained ourselves to be more conscious of the impact of our thoughts and speech on others, it will lead to great karmic consequences later on the spiritual path for ourselves and our followers. That's why you have to look at motive. Why are we doing this? Because if we gain spiritual power in a spiritual position as an authority that others look up to, and we're not disciplining ourselves enough, it's going to be a mess. There's numerous examples of that out there in the world. Finally, when the book Initiation Human and Solar talks about this rule being a clue to the great cycles and the purpose underlying pralaya, it is referring to the probationer learning about when the appropriate cycle or timing is about speaking on certain things or not. Pralaya is a cycle of withdrawal or rest. So during pralaya, old ideas are being withdrawn and should no longer be emphasized. You know, some of that is in the Native American tradition or the indigenous tradition, where people learn not to say the name of a person who has crossed over, because you don't want to bring that person back into this world. Now that's real different than in China, for example, where you honor the elders. So there's different cultural ideas here, but we need to learn to distinguish when we want to let some old ideas go. Now, from a psycho-spiritual perspective, that doesn't mean that we do a spiritual bypass and that we haven't fully dealt with or digested things from the past or healed or transformed them. We want to do that. But once we've done that, let it go. Don't dwell on it anymore. And newer ideas may need time to mature before being spoken of or introduced to others. That's one reason why we have to keep silent. And we have to be careful about who we share something with. Not just because that person could rip off our idea and go use it somewhere else, but because maybe we haven't thought things through enough. Maybe we need to spend more time to mature it. Maybe we want to be careful who we share that idea with so that they will add to it and enhance it and help us to either grow it or pass it on to somebody else who would do a better job with the idea. We all know what it's like to share something and have everybody poo-poo it in a way that just leaves us disheartened. The chick doesn't come out of the egg is smashed. We don't want to do that. So timing is essential for Group 7 probationers to learn, so that our lower personality tendencies do not speak of things that we shouldn't be speaking of, which is something a rebellious personality nature may resent doing. They want freedom to be dumb. Freedom to say whatever they want, whenever they want, to just spit anything out of their mouths, no matter how horrible or untrue or unclear or unkind or cruel. That's awakening vibration within the halls of Maya, and that is not what Group 7 probationer disciples are learning. So I hope this video helped you, and if you enjoy this video, as I always say, please support this work. I have these 12 books that you see here in the works, as well as many videos. And the way that you can support that is to become a patron at patreon.com/soul2spirit. And when you do, you get copies of charts, books, and an inside look into our process and what's next. You can also visit our website, soul2spirit.com. And if you enjoy this YouTube channel, subscribe, like, comment, and share. Again, I always like to give credit where it's due. This video was created and narrated by me, Dr. Lisa Love. The Pure of Heart music that you hear playing in the background is licensed for use from royalty-free meditationmusic.com. Photos were purchased from 123rf.com. Thanks for watching.